هبت كالريح 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 قوية جبت كالنار 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 وضية.
Chased by the deep state, fighting for independence, thinking about revolution, looking for alternative solutions. The enemies of the deep state will tell you what others even don't dare to think. Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the next edition of the geopolitical podcast, DieGutenMenschen, Public Enemies of the Deep State. My name is Manuel Ochsenreiter. I'm editor-in-chief of Germany's Zuerst News magazine, and I speak to my friend and colleague Mateusz Piskorski from Poland. Hello, Mateusz.
Hello, welcome to everyone.
Yes. How are you doing today?
Well, today we are still watching what is going on in Belarus, but today we have actually a national holiday in Poland. Have you heard about that holiday?
Is it the holiday for the adoration of the German neighbor?
No, the adoration of an Atlantic friend.
Tell me.
Officially, Poland has a holiday of its armed forces, and as a gift, we got a visit of Pompeo today, and generous promise that we'll get another 1,000 of U.S. troops on our territory.
Oh, you are so lucky. Oh,
yes, you are losing them. You are losing the Americans and their consumerist potential, they're on your territory, and we are gaining them here.
Yes. I will now reenact the German mayor when he hears that U.S. troops are leaving his city. He is, you know what the Japanese mayor would say? Finally, occupation forces are leaving. But you know what the German mayor says?
Yes, I know that. He would cry.
Yeah, but who will then now shop in our supermarkets? Not joking. It's true. It's really true.
Exactly. And so just imagine that there will be another bunch of mayors of small towns in Poland who will be so satisfied and glad.
They say, we can open a new supermarket.
Yes. Not only supermarket, even some underground business.
Perfect. It is all perfect. You see, it's like the yin and yang.
That's why we are lucky having such a good news at our national holiday. Of course, everything in context of a possible aggression of the vicious Eastern Empire.
Belorussia. No, Russia.
No, Bhutan.
I forgot how could that happen to me? Bhutan didn't offer any peace until today to Poland, right?
Yes, that's why we try to get as many U.S. troops as possible.
That is what I understand. If we would be under threat of Bhutan,
the situation is becoming more and more serious. We are on the verge of the Third World War.
And for this also somehow our today's topic fits. We speak about international terrorism, about terrorists who travel around, who are active once at this geopolitical hotspot, then at that geopolitical hotspot, and who seem somehow being exchangeable, at least when it comes to the political action or the terrorist action at the spot where they act. And before we start, since we are also an educational podcast, do you know what nation provides the most lousy international terrorists?
What nation?
Yes. What?
Germany.
Yes. How did you know?
I'm right.
Yes.
So yes. I know that you have a big cultural, ethnic minority of guys who are ready to who are not ready to work in Germany, but who want to get a well-paid job somewhere abroad. Yes.
But you are already now speaking about the guys who are more or less, well, let us say more professional. But I mean, really, the ethnic Germans. The ethnic Germans are the most.
Ethnic Germans.
Yes. I have two anecdotes about that, and the first one is, I mean, you know the story of the 1970s and the Rote Armee Fraktion, the RAF, right? I mean,
they used to be my heroes.
Now for the children, violence is never a solution. We should make a circle with chairs and talk about everything. So just as disclaimer, I don't want to be blocked from YouTube because you are again doing that here. So yes, but you then of course then you know the story that at least a group of the RAF had very good relations to the Palestinians, right?
Yes, of course.
Of course. And you know, of course, also that a group of the German RAF went to Lebanon in, I think, somewhere in the 1970s to get trained there for things like urban warfare, to train how to build bombs, how to use guns, how to, you know, this terrorist stuff simply. I think you know about this.
Yes, I have heard. Mm-hmm.
But you know how desperate the Palestinians were with us Germans. Did you also hear about that?
No, tell me.
So number one was that the female German terrorists were not so much interested in all these lessons about guns and weapons. They were much more interested in getting a total block-free 10. So they were sunbathing on the roofs of the houses. And since the Palestinian friends were, let us say, from their moral or the level of morality, not at the point that they could accept naked women on rooftops sunbathing, they were very upset with us. So that was the first thing. So they really became desperate with this. And the number two is, I think you know Horst Mahler. The name also rings a bell.
Yes, of course. Now he's in jail now, or prison.
I think non-stop he is somehow. I'm not sure. Maybe he's again out for a week.
He's a really skillful lawyer.
Yes. By the way, a business lawyer, I think. So and really not a bad one. But today, I mean, he crossed the whole political landscape from very far left to very far right.
You mean to NPD?
Yes, he was the lawyer then of the NPD, and then later on he even became more. I don't know exactly where he stands today, but as you said, he is non-stop fighting against the German law, which puts him frequently in prison over and over again. But Horst Mahler was also once in Lebanon in the 1970s, and he also made the Palestinians desperate, because Horst Mahler was so German that, and of course he was always a man of the law and a lawyer, that instead of participating at the lessons of the Palestinians, Horst Mahler was always calling for meetings of the Germans to discuss very important theoretical questions of the anti-capitalist warfare. And wrote one decree after the other, and if someone was suspected to be a traitor, or if someone was suspected to deliver information outside the camp, Horst Mahler always proposed to make a type of trial and so on. So the Germans were arriving and making everyone busy immediately with bureaucracy. So that's us. so that's us.
That's why if you would like to spoil any kind of unrest, you should send some Germans there. Yes?
Absolutely. And the second short story is a more or less recent one. That was, I'm not sure, it was 2014 or 2015 when I have been in Syria. There, a Syrian soldier told me the story that he was at the front line. I don't know exactly where it was, but I think it was also somewhere close to Idlib. And he told me the story that a group of German jihadis arrived there. And I asked 3 times, what do you mean with German jihadis? Guys with a German passport or real Germans? And he said, no. These were, this type of the German convertit who took Islam as his religion.
Yes. So
and
ethnic Germans.
Ethnic Germans who took Islam and who went into jihad. And guess what they did after their arrival? It is adorable. I didn't know if I should feel ashamed or proud when I heard that.
Well, they went to the police, yes, to denounce themselves.
No, even better. They arrived there, and since they studied very well all the rules of Islam, like a good German does, they immediately lectured all the other Muslims there, all the other all the other jihadi terrorists, how to pray correctly, if something is haram or halal. So we arrived and lectured everyone about their own culture. And so you see, with us you cannot, as you said, if you want to spoil a revolution, send us.
Well, that's why we should give a free advice to our Belarusian friends. Invite some Germans.
Yes, invite 100 Germans, and they will make the uprising collapse. Because I'm very much sure that the Belarus opposition is not separating the garbage.
Yes, I'm sure. Anyway, you have noticed quite an interesting thing, yes, that before we were just talking about typical terrorist movements, yes? Mm-hmm. I mean, the guys who are just preparing some terrorist attacks and so on and so on. We had, of course, a lot of them all over the world, mainly prepared and trained by the US in different parts of the world, of course. But now we can also speak about some political tourists or entrepreneurs who are, let's say, trying to sell their services when it comes to igniting social unrest, shooting at the people somewhere in the streets, then to blame the authorities for shooting them, the protesters, and things like that. Yes, so I think that the profession of an international terrorist or unrest inspirator is becoming more and more complex, yes? What do you think about that?
Yes, I think more complex. Of course, also due to all the technical advances, more modern, of course. And I am not sure, what is the motivation of these people? I think you know a little bit better who was traveling. The guys who were doing this Otpor, was it Otpor in Serbia? Right?
Yes, exactly.
Otpor uprising, then Ukraine. I think the Otpor manuals were also seen, for example, in Hong Kong there during the protests. And I'm pretty much sure that what is happening right now in Belarus is also connected to that.
It's very similar technology. In such groups who are sent to a given territory to destabilize the situation, you have, of course, as in every case, you have, let's say, different groups of internal collaborators, first and foremost. So what they have to do is to find 2 kinds of internal collaborators. One of the groups is just to let's say, motivate the locals to protest, to pay the locals to build network structures and so on. The second group they are also interested in and they are targeted also by them is the group of officials who might be potentially unloyal to the regime, yes? So this is the methodology. Just trying to hire some locals from different social groups and classes, And then, of course, another aspect of the whole methodology is their own presence. I mean, the presence of some, let's say, international disturbers and professional organizers of color revolutions in different places who are sent to a given country. First, there's a group of, very skilled advisors and professionals who are steering all the things. There is a technical personnel also who is keen on things like the usage of social media, the VPN, the Siphon, the possibilities to unblock the internet, yes, in case the internet is blocked in a given country. So this is a huge operation, actually, and of course it's a lot different than the old-style terrorism. But on the other hand, it reminds, when it comes to the goals they want to achieve, yes, it's quite similar to the goals of traditional terrorists.
I would say that we can also summarize this as a type of warfare. What do you say? It is a type of warfare, right?
Well, yes, exactly. If you get a goal, precise goal to destabilize the situation or to, let's say, prepare public unrest, some brutal protests, and some confrontation between the police, for instance, and the local population, it might be regarded as some kind of warfare, of course. But on the other hand, of course, also that more traditional terrorists are in use. Still, they are in use. And we can see the examples, for instance, in Turkey, yes, which is massively using traditional terrorist groups for its own goals abroad, yes?
And almost openly. I mean, when we look especially what Turkey is doing within the last 1.5 years, one could say that they use, especially now, Syrian terrorists from the region of Idlib. So from Idlib they had somehow to disappear, since the Syrian army has done there a lot of positive advances and gained back a lot of territory. So we can say that Turkey is somehow using these terrorists. Well, we could say like France is using the Foreign Legion, something like that.
Yes, they are permanently sent to different countries, and of course there is a risk that in case of a confrontation between continental Europe and Turkey, they might be used also in Europe as well. I mean, it's very easy to smuggle them among the so-called immigrants or refugees and so on. Yes, so
I'm totally convinced this is already happening. I am totally convinced that with these streams of migrants, that these streams are already infiltrated by these people. Totally sure of that.
Yes, of course. It's quite easy. Technologically, it's quite easy. On the other hand, we are now witnessing the situation in Libya as well, which is a kind of, I would say, very typical example of using the traditional classical terrorist groups to destabilize the situation, or even to get control over a significant part of a country. Yes.
Yeah. By the way, what is interesting? Of course you remember, but you remember some months ago we did a podcast where we spoke about that movie, that Russian movie Shugaley, I think, yes, and we spoke about the situation in Libya and in the context also about Turkey. And do you remember that we had some harsh criticism for the show where some guys were saying, oh, this is a conspiracy theory, Turkey is not so active in Libya, Turkey is not sending terrorists there, this is just like info war. But I mean, now, just some weeks ago, even the so-called Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the mouthpiece since many, many, many years for all kinds of Western propaganda against the Syrian government, even they had to confirm, I think, that at least some thousand Syrian terrorists I think they don't call them terrorists, they call them then fighters or so, but still were brought to Libya in support of the government of GNA, the government of National Accord, of the head Sarraj, to Tripoli in the civil war against the Libyan National Army of General Haftar. So even they were now confirming that, and I think now this information can be considered as absolutely safe and reliable. What do you think?
Well, exactly. I think that Turkey is even not hiding the fact that it's supporting and sending the terrorist groups there. Yes, so it's no more a secret.
But I have a question. Because I would be very interested how you see this. I mean, there are many interpretations about what Turkey is doing and why Turkey is doing. I think what Turkey is doing with this shipment of terrorists to Libya, I think that is out of the question. This is a thing we can agree, and this is a thing where even our opponents would have to agree. But why are they doing this? Do you believe? I mean, there is this story and this narrative about this neo-Ottoman sentiment, and that Erdogan and his administration somehow are trying, well, maybe not to revive the Ottoman Empire, but at least to gain the zone of influence, to become again a bigger regional power than they are today. Do you believe in this? Or what would be another interpretation is Turkey playing in this maybe also the role of the willing helper of the West, of the United States? Because what Turkey is actually doing, no EU country, or the EU in general, or the US could do in such an open and shameless way.
Well, I think that both explanations are right. Yes, I don't think we can just one-sidedly explain the Turkish policy. To be honest, I also think that there is also some kind of third explanation to what is happening now. Yes, well, it's very easy to explain everything also by some let's say business structures, yes, and business interests. So you have on the one hand ideology. Of course, I agree with you that this is a part of the ideology, and they are trying to use all means, including terrorist groups which are sent all over the Mediterranean, like to Libya, for their own ideological goals. Then you have the geopolitical ambitions, of course, and also the possibility to use Turkey, let's say, to destabilize the so-called Eurasian Balkans, as Brzezinski some time ago called all the Muslim world, south of Europe, south of Russia, and south of southwest of China. Yes, this huge area. And on the third side, you of course have some business interests. I mean, it would be quite interesting to analyze the business structures and business ideas of Turkish entrepreneurs close to Erdogan in the Arabic countries, yes, and in Libya as well, yes. So, according to me, I mean, I'm always supporting the idea that different things in contemporary politics, international politics, shouldn't be explained just one-sidedly as they would have only one cause. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I think that yes, the terrorists are used as mercenaries to realize and to accomplish geopolitical, ideological, and economic aims of Turkish elites.
And I believe in an additional aspect, maybe not a very short-term aspect, but at least middle and long-term. If we now just imagine a map of the Mediterranean, and when we know that Turkey is controlling the stream of illegal migrants when it comes to the border with Greece and to the so-called Balkan route. And we spoke already, and we told that within this migrant stream, which, by the way, never stopped, that doesn't mean when the mainstream media is not reporting about it that that there is nothing happening. So there is happening something non-stop, and there are people coming non-stop and entering EU illegally, and of course going to Germany, to France, to Austria, to Sweden. So that is happening right now. And if we imagine now the map of the Mediterranean and we take a look where Libya is, then we see in long term that Europe will be not anymore at a one-front threat by that, but at a two-front threat. I think that Turkey is gaining now a strategic position to blackmail Europe from two borders. What do you think?
Yes, exactly. That's why this is a very effective, efficient strategy, because having such a possibility to blackmail European Union as a whole, actually, or at least the Schengen area, gives Turkey a chance to get another portion of several billions euro, yes, as they did before, yes. Mm-hmm. So it has also quite important financial aspect.
Exactly, and also strategic. Yeah, also strategic aspect, because. Yeah, because they can make Europe, for example, looking away if they have additional strategic aspects when it comes to Syria or other neighbor countries. And I think that is very important, that Turkey has somehow the hand on the Schlagbaum, yes, and that they can open it like you open water to flood something, and you can close it anytime.
That's why I'm always repeating that in the best interest of Europe as such, of all European countries, the European countries should support all those forces who oppose terrorist groups supported by Turkey in Middle East and Northern Africa. Like they should support the authorities in Syria, which are trying to get rid of the problem, which is also dangerous for Europe. They should also think about supporting the Libyan National Army, which is trying to fight the terrorist threat there. And this is not because they are or they should sympathize with the given leaders or political military formations, but for our own safety. Yes,
I would go even lower in these expectations. I think it would be already enough when Europe wouldn't create obstacles for these authorities in Syria, for example, in their fight against terrorism. If Europe wouldn't impose sanctions and embargoes, I honestly speaking, I don't think that any country needs now Europe's really support or help, but at least Europe shouldn't create any additional obstacle in that.
Yes, but for that we would need a sovereign European policy, yes, which we don't have now, unfortunately, and that's also creating all the dangers we are talking about.
Yeah, that's the main problem. I also say one cannot blame Erdogan for what he's actually doing, because no one is really creating an obstacle for him for doing all these things, but a mass of obstacles for all his enemies. Yeah, that is the point.
Yes. Well, of course, you cannot blame a leader of a country, yes, that he's trying to, let's say, realize his strategy, his ideology as well, and his geopolitical aims. Well, we should blame only ourselves, yes, because we are unable to react to that in terms of opposing the threat coming from the terrorist groups. That's why, of course, you cannot blame a wolf that he's a wolf, yes.
Now,
if we compare,
I get goosebumps.
when it comes to Turkey, the comparison with wolves, especially particularly grey wolves,
yes,
could sound quite offensive from the point of view of the ideological circles of Erdogan. So we didn't mean that.
Yes, yes. But really, what is interesting? I mean, since when some minutes ago, when we were speaking about the Turkish activities, did you know that there is now from this first movie Shugaley I was mentioning what was or what still is about two Russian hostages which were kidnapped by Islamist forces, of course under the command of the GNA, of the command under Sarraj, and are now kept still, I think, early last year, early 2019, are kept in a type of, well, they call it private prison, whatever that has to mean. There is now a second part, which I think will be broadcasted in September, and the second part will exactly empathize this Turkish influence in Libya. And I think that's very interesting to put that into an action movie. What do you think?
Well, that's the only way to explain some geopolitical processes happening now to a broader audience, yes? Well, I don't think that a lot of people are studying the analysis or scientific articles about Libya and the Turkish policy in the Mediterranean, yes? That's why getting to the people with this information through the mass culture, through a movie, through an action movie particularly, is a very good idea, I guess. Nevertheless, I really hope that we have heard actually some information which then appeared to be fake, that the Russian citizens have been released. Have you heard about that?
No, but it's for sure fake information. I know
it's fake, but it was announced by the members of this government of National Accord by Tripoli, that they have been passed to the western part of Libya, to the Libyan National Army. But of course, it hasn't been confirmed by anyone. That's why we can be 100% sure that it's fake. Hopefully, in the third part of Shugaley, we'll have a happy end.
We can take an ear. Not take an eye, because since we are not a visual podcast, but we can listen to some sound bites of the trailer for the second part. Would you like to? I have it here.
Oh, of course, it might be interesting. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It went well.
I did the same thing once in Kosovo.
I want the people to believe that Shugaley was sent as a spy. We really don't know where he's being held now. I didn't take into account that Turkey would help our enemies.
You have meeting with an important person.
I love that accent. So, but what is?
The movie seems to be quite promising and realistic, by the way. Also, when it comes to the accent.
Yes, I mean, one of the accusations, I mean, not like a legal accusation, but what was rumored around the kidnapping was that these are Russian spies and all these things. I mean, these are sociologists who were working there, but that they are spies. But what is more interesting is that every expert is absolutely convinced that the GNA itself and their militias wouldn't have the ability to do such an operation without the help of a foreign intel service. And there are a lot of signs which lead into the direction of Turkey when it comes to that.
Yes, it will be very interesting to watch the second part. In the first part, I have watched it and it was quite impressive. And I remember that in the first part there was a short, let's say, a scene showing the role of the US special forces and US intelligence in the kidnapping as well. So in the second, as we hear from the announcements, everything will be more focused on the Turkish ones, yes?
Yes, and I think that will be very interesting. But something else, I think we should speak very, 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 very soon again about Belarus. What do you think?
Well, certainly it's the most important and hot topic nowadays. Every day the situation is changing, dynamically changing. We have also some friends there, and I guess that perhaps we'll be able to invite some of them for our podcast as well. But nevertheless, let's discuss in the coming days the development of the crisis in Belarus.
And you have all the time your eye on the events, right?
Of course, all the day. Actually, it's so interesting to observe, to watch that. I'm spending several hours a day just reading and watching the informations from there.
And I think that is really amazing because, as we said already in the last podcast, we have now. We got for our last podcast a lot of emails, comments, and all the stuff from the audience. I think they really appreciate your expertise on that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But anyway, we would like to get more and more feedback from our listeners, yes? And also, well, if you would have any special wishes when it comes to the questions we should discuss when it comes to Belarus as well, just write us and we'll try to find out the answers you cannot find.
Absolutely. I think I will also write this into the description of the video so that the audience will be sure that they can send us the questions. It was a pleasure again to talk to you today, and I feel like that we will talk very, very, very soon again. But next time again about the situation in Belarus.
Yes, so hear you soon, and hopefully we'll have some interesting news to discuss in our next podcast.
This program was presented to you by Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski, the hottest dissident who won't violate any time the global rules against racism, extremism, or any other bad isms.